All right, today we're going to dig into a really small, often overlooked moment on the road to the crucifixion. But believe me, it holds this profound story about a completely unexpected exchange of roles.
Okay, so let's just dive right in. Most of us, we know the first big exchange of roles that happened that day, right? You've got Barabbas, a guilty man, who gets set free. And then you have Jesus, the innocent one, who takes his place. I mean, this is the ultimate substitution, a really foundational moment for the whole story.
But here's the thing you might not know. That wasn't the only switch that went down. The sources point to another, much more personal exchange that happened just moments later. It involved a man who had hit his absolute physical limit, and a total stranger who was just watching from the crowd.
So why was this second exchange even necessary? Well, to really get it, you have to understand the physical shape Jesus was in. I mean, after a whole night of interrogations, beatings, and being scourged, he was just utterly spent. You know, it's interesting. The scriptures, especially prophecies like this one from Isaiah, they paint a really surprising picture. They don't describe some kind of physically imposing superhero. Instead, the language suggests someone, well, ordinary, maybe even a bit frail. Definitely not someone you'd expect to endure that level of punishment.
And then this next quote, it takes it even further. It completely shatters that typical image we might have of a strong, stoic figure. The sources really emphasize that by this point, he was physically broken. His appearance was so disfigured, he was barely recognizable as a human being.
So, this is the crucial point. He had reached his absolute physical limit. He literally could not take another step carrying that cross. He just kept falling. Even the threat of the whip couldn't get him to move anymore. His body had absolutely nothing left to give. And for the Roman soldiers, this was becoming a real problem. So what do? They need to keep things moving. So they just scan the crowd of people watching, and they pull some guy out of the sea of faces. And this is where the second key person in our story steps onto the stage. His name was Simon. And as you can see from his profile here, he was the definition of an outsider. He wasn't from around there. He was from a place called Cyrene in modern-day Libya. He wasn't a follower, not a disciple, just a bystander, probably in town for the Passover festival like so many others. He was, for all intents and purposes, just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And notice this detail. The Gospel of Mark actually names his sons, Alexander and Rufus. That's a little clue that's going to become really important later on. Now, this brings us to a really critical point about how Simon got involved. This was not some noble act of volunteering. Simon didn't see what was happening and step forward out of compassion. No, he was forced into this. The original language actually uses a term that basically means forced cross. This wasn't a friendly request. It was a military command. You see, under Roman law, a soldier could force any civilian to carry a burden for them. So Simon had absolutely no choice in the matter. One minute he's a bystander, the next he's been conscripted to carry this heavy, bloody instrument of execution. And yet, even though he was forced into it, the story kind of hints that his attitude shifted. He saw the state Jesus was in, completely broken, and he accepted the task. He didn't fight back, he didn't try to run away, he just took the burden. Which leads us to this central paradox of this whole story, right? How on earth did a moment of forced, public humiliation, being tied to a condemned criminal, how did that transform into this lasting legacy of grace and honor? Well, the answer isn't found on that dusty road to the execution site. It's found in the years that came after. That one single moment had this incredible ripple effect that changed everything for Simon and his family. And it all played out inside the early Christian community. And you can see that ripple effect right here. It all starts with the act. Simon carries the cross. Then we see the impact on his family. Remember his sons, Alexander and Rufus? They became well-known, respected figures in the early church. And then, get this, many scholars believe this is the same Rufus that the Apostle Paul gives a personal shout-out to in his letter to the Romans. He calls him chosen in the Lord, and even greets his mother, Simon's wife, as a mother to him too. It all culminates in Simon being honored as a saint in church tradition. Just stop and think about that for a second. What should have been this horrible, traumatic memory, the worst day of his life, it became a story of immense pride. It became a core part of his family's identity and their faith.
That chance encounter, that forced duty, became the moment their lives intersected with this huge event, and it was totally transformed into their family's greatest honor.
So, okay, fascinating story. But what does any of this ancient history have to do with us today? Well, it brings us right back to that main theme of exchanging roles. Only this time, the question is pointed squarely at us.
The whole Christian message kicks off with Jesus taking our place, right? Exchanging his innocence for our guilt. The story of Simon, though, it provides this perfect bookend to that idea. It kind of ends by flipping the question around and asking if we're willing, just for a moment, to take his place. Are we willing to step in when someone else has reached their limit? And so, that's the question we're left with. Just like Simon, every one of us is going to encounter heavy crosses that aren't ours to bear. They might belong to a friend or a family member, maybe even a complete stranger. And it's going to be inconvenient. It's going to be messy. The question this story leaves us with is, what are we going to do? Are we willing to help carry that weight, even if it's just for a little while?